Elden Ring has many bosses, like a lot. Some of them are great and some are, well, kinda cheeks, not gonna lie. However, in this video I'll be talking about the remembrance bosses from both the main game and the DLC. I'm gonna be ranking them to see which is the best. I've realized I didn't make a video on this. I mean, technically I did, but a lot of my opinions have changed ever since, plus at the time the DLC wasn't out, so I guess it's time for yet another boss ranking video for Elden Ring. If you like content like this, then be sure to subscribe only if you want to, but without wasting any more of your time, let's get right into the ranking. Fire Giant. The Fire Giant is still my least favorite boss fight in the entirety of Elden Ring. Now the design of the giant looks really cool. I like the whole Viking aesthetic vibe that's going on. Now the issue lies with how he fights. The Fire Giant has a lot of health, especially in his second phase, so it's best to come with a bleed weapon because man, without that you're gonna be here for a while. His first phase, despite it being a bit boring, is still not that bad. All you have to do is hit his damaged area and then keep doing so until he transitions to the second phase. Now the second phase is where the real trouble lies. Remember when I said that the Fire Giant has a lot of health? Well, this becomes more apparent here. He obviously still has some weak spots like his hands, but you're gonna have a way harder time fighting him from the front instead of just focusing on his leg thumps, as he keeps moving his arms a lot. On top of this, he likes to roll around the arena and he has some annoying AoE attacks. Overall, the Fire Giant still sucks and is definitely my least favorite boss in the entire game. Commander Gaius. This boss is utter dog shit. I don't care what no one says. Commander Gaius is one of those bosses that could have had a higher spot if he wasn't so shitty. I mean, he has qualities that I like. His arena is open and looks really dope. The design is amazing as it's just a dude on a giant hog. His powers are cool too, but that's where the positives end because everything else about him sucks. First of all, every time you enter his arena, this man will bull charge straight towards you, and this wouldn't be that bad if the attack could be dodged consistently. I'll be able to dodge it one time, then let's say 3 tries later, it will always hit me. His attacks do massive amounts of damage and he barely has any downtime at all. I swear he will have some insane strings of combos where he will jump into the air, attack you with his lance, do some other shit, then after you think he's finished, nope, bro just immediately starts attacking you again. He barely gives the player any time to attack him, and again, this man does a lot of damage. To sum it up, the reason why he ranks super low is because he barely feels like he's made for this game. He's super fast, he has way too little downtime, has an attack with a shitty hitbox, does a crazy amount of damage. Now you might be saying, well, why not just summon Torrent? I mean, I did, but for some reason this man is faster than a friggin' F1 hypercar and can catch up in no time. So fighting him with Torrent is a recipe for disaster. But yeah, Gaius sucks and he's terrible, at least to me. Regal Ancestor Spirit. The Ancestor Spirit is definitely better than the last 2 bosses in terms of quality. It's not a very hard fight, but it can be annoying at times, mainly because the boss can heal itself and teleport far away from the player. These mechanics don't make it harder, just more drawn out and frustrating. The boss's moveset is pretty simple with a few stomping attacks, headbutts, and a spirit juice attack. None of these are too difficult to dodge, but they can catch you off guard if you aren't careful. While the fight isn't terrible, it does feel a bit boring after a while. The most interesting part about the Ancestor Spirit is the look and the atmosphere of the fight. The setting and the dreamlike environment makes the fight feel unique and otherworldly. However, once you get used to its appearance, the fight itself becomes a little repetitive. Overall, the Ancestor Spirit is not a bad boss, but it's just more memorable for its visuals and setting rather than the challenge or excitement of the actual fight itself. Now let's move on to C tier, and the first boss here is none other than Astel, Natural Born of the Void. Astel is yet another boss I've come to realize is a bit overrated in terms of quality. Sure, don't get me wrong, he looks sick and the whole alien vibe is cool and all, but his attacks, while beautiful looking, tend to kind of feel not super engaging, I guess is the best way to put it. He's just stationary most of the time and he oftentimes do this triple gravity blast thing that for some reason feels awkward to dodge. Again, design is great, just this feels a bit, mediocre in terms of an actually engaging fight. However, I do enjoy fighting him more than the previous bosses I've mentioned. Putrescent Knight, yet another boss with very little downtime. I swear most bosses in this game, especially in the DLC, barely gives you any chance to hit them. They're always just moving around, it's crazy. And that goes for Putrescent Knight as well. In my opinion, this is what makes him a bit unfun. What's even crazier is the amount of damage he does. This man hits like a freaking missile. Maybe not as much as Commander Gaius, but he's a heavy hitter for sure. Now in terms of design, I actually really like it. He's another horseman fight, which is something I don't despise, and his arena looks freaking cool. Now the real main reason why I have him higher than the rest is because at least he doesn't have a lot of health, so fighting him isn't a slog, even though again he tends to move around frequently, which can definitely drag out the fight a bit. But this just makes me wish that in future titles they'll hopefully make the bosses have longer openings, or at least make the players fast enough to keep up with them. But yeah, Putrescent Knight gets this spot. Meteor, Mother of Fingers. Meteor is absolutely amazing when it comes down to visuals and design. The cosmic spacey vibe she brings to the fight is unique, and I love how her appearance gives off an eerie, otherworldly presence. Her attacks, especially the black hole beams, is one of the coolest and most beautiful looking attacks in the entire game. Visually, she's top tier. However, despite how incredible she looks, the actual fight itself isn't that fun for me. Her moveset, apart from a few standout attacks, is pretty boring and can get annoying fast. The fact that her entire body is a hitbox adds unnecessary frustrations, making it hard to find safe spots during the fight. Her attacks are also tricky to dodge, which I don't mind, but combined with the hitbox issue, it just makes the fight drag on and feel more tedious than challenging. Overall, Meteor is a great boss for visuals and atmosphere, and that's the main reason she ranks this high, but everything else about the fight feels pretty mediocre. She's impressive to look at, but the experience of fighting her doesn't live up to the spectacle. It's a cool fight visually, but in terms of gameplay, it's just not very fun. Again, it's not a bad fight, just pretty mid. Renala. Renala is a boss that starts off slow, especially on repeat playthroughs. The first phase where she's floating around in the library while you're dealing with her students feel a bit dull and not very engaging. It's more about finding the clones with the glowing aura around them and then killing them in order to break her shield, and yeah, that's pretty much the first phase. This phase can feel like a chore, and while it's not hard, it's just not that fun after the first time. However, the second phase is a big improvement, even though it has its fair share of issues. The fight becomes much more dynamic as Renala uses more powerful sorceries and summons to keep you on your toes. The beautiful moonlit arena and the overall atmosphere also adds to the experience, making this phase feel more like a real boss fight. Now, while the summons and sorcery can be cool, she usually spams the summons a lot, breaking up the flow of the battle. Most times I usually just ignore them and head straight to her. Overall, while the first phase is a bit boring, the second phase makes up for it with a better moveset, a stunning arena, and more engaging mechanics. Renala might not be the toughest boss, but she's certainly more enjoyable in the later part of the fight. Shadow Tree Avatar. The Shadow Tree Avatar fight isn't bad, but it can feel a bit drawn out. The boss has a large health pool, and this can make the fight take longer than necessary, especially with it having 3 separate health bars. While this adds some challenge, it can make the fight feel a bit repetitive and drag on longer than it should have. That said, the visuals of the fight are impressive, and the design of the boss is pretty cool. For what's essentially a giant moving sunflower, the Avatar has a surprisingly dynamic moveset. It uses a variety of attacks from the double-headed slam, the thorns it can summon from the ground, to the AoE holy attack, keeping you on your toes throughout the encounter. This makes the fight feel more interesting than you would expect from such a slow lumbering boss. However, the biggest downside is still the length. Even though the moveset is engaging, having to go through multiple health bars can turn what could have been a satisfying battle into something that feels like a grind. Overall, the Shadow Tree Avatar looks great and has some fun mechanics, but the long fight and repeated health bars make it less enjoyable over time. It's still not a bad boss though, far from it. Elden Beast. I've said this multiple times, but Elden Beast after the Torrent update became a way better boss. Most of my issues were that it would run away a lot, but having Torrent to easily close the distance makes things so much better. He also makes getting away from the Elden Stars attack much more easier. Overall, Elden Beast is a pretty solid boss that gets a bit too much hate in my opinion. Placidusax. Placidusax is an incredible boss when it comes down to sheer spectacle. His design, which looks a lot like King Ghidorah, is visually stunning, and his lightning based attacks add to the epic feel of the fight. Some of his moves like the teleporting lightning strike, the lightning nuke, and the double-headed beam attack are not only powerful but also looks amazing. They give the fight a larger than life feel, even though some of the hitboxes on these attacks can feel a little off at times. However, despite how cool the fight looks, actually battling Placidusax can feel like a bit of a chore. He has a huge health pool which makes the fight drag on, especially on repeat playthroughs. It's not that his tankiness is a problem in itself, but it can make the battlefield less enjoyable as you go through it again and again. The second phase doesn't help much as Placidusax starts teleporting around constantly, which prolongs the fight. Even if you've almost beaten him, you might still spend another minute or two just chasing him down because he won't stay still. While he's definitely a good boss and looks incredible, the fight's pacing keeps him from being truly great. making him feel a bit overrated in terms of engagement. Bale. I think enough time has passed, so I have a confession. I'm not really a super big fan of Bale. Now, don't get me wrong, he's a spectacle to behold. The lead up, the design, and his attacks are very cool, but just like Plasudasax, I feel like he's only good on your first playthrough, because fighting him on subsequent playthroughs just feels like such a drag, due to his enormous health and the fact that he moves around quite often. Personally, those two things don't go together for me, but again, Bale isn't a bad fight, it just feels like a drag. That's it. Godric the Grafted. Godric the Grafted is a solid boss overall. His design, while not my favorite, is still impressive in a horrifying way. The sheer number of limbs grafted onto his body along with the dragon head on his arm gives him a grotesque but memorable look. It fits well with his theme of being a twisted ruler desperate for power. In terms of his moveset, Godric has a variety of attacks, some of which are delayed, making them tricky to dodge and capable of catching you off guard. He also has a lot of combos which can seem overwhelming at first. However, despite his aggressive appearance, he's surprisingly easier to dodge compared to Margit. His patterns are more readable once you've seen them a few times, making the fight more manageable. Overall, Godric is a well-designed boss with a cool but creepy look and a fairly balanced moveset. He's challenging but not overly difficult, making him feel rewarding to fight. Fortisax. Fortisax is a decent boss, and after fighting him again, I'd say he's definitely better than Plasudasax. His animation feels more like what you'd expect from a dragon, making him more true to the creature compared to Plasudasax. However, Fortisax has one major flaw: the lightning attack that constantly locks onto the player throughout the whole fight. This move really drags down the overall experience. It's not difficult to deal with, but it feels like it's just there to frustrate the player rather than to add any meaningful challenge. It disrupts the pacing and makes what could be a more enjoyable fight feel unnecessarily annoying. That said, just like Dragonlord, Fortisax is visually stunning. His design, along with the stormy, electrified battlefield, creates an epic atmosphere that makes the fight look amazing. If it weren't for that annoying lightning attack, he'd easily be among the top bosses. Rykard. Rykard is one of the only gimmick bosses that's actually really good. I know I've been gushing over the appearance of the bosses, but let's be honest, they do look really cool. Especially Rykard. He's straight up nightmare fuel, and his arena looks beautiful in a weird twisted way. Now Rykard can be fought with your regular weapons, but in my opinion it's just really boring to do so. But the way you're actually supposed to fight him is by using the Serpent Hunter, which generates large amounts of wind that can do a great amount of damage to him. What makes the Serpent Hunter great is it's not just one attack that you have to charge up, but it has a whole moveset of wind-based attacks, which makes fighting Rykard on subsequent playthroughs not feel like a chore. Speaking of attacks, some of his can be a bit weird, either because they feel almost impossible to dodge or just outright overwhelming, but this doesn't drag down the fight by any means, as it's still really good. Star Scourge Radahn. Fighting Radahn for the first time was an amazing experience. Seeing this giant towering behemoth of a man riding around on a scrawny looking horse was funny but cool at the same time. His moveset is varied and has some interesting powers and abilities, and his second phase transition was amazing. Now here's the issue I have with Radahn, and I don't know if it's just me or maybe other people have experienced this. Fighting him on subsequent playthroughs isn't as fun as the first time. I've said this before in a previous video, but it's true. All the excitement is truly gone when fighting him again, and some people may say that most bosses are like that, but I disagree. Some of my favorite bosses in the game took me fighting them 2 to 3 times for me to actually appreciate them. However, again, Radahn is not like that. Now that aside, is the boss fight itself terrible in terms of mechanics? Nope. I actually feel like after they patched his hitboxes, he became one of the better balanced bosses in the entire game. It's just that fighting him again isn't that fun, at least to me. But I do prefer fighting him again compared to the previous bosses. Now let's move on to A tier. Divine Beast Dancing Lion. The Dancing Lion was a boss that I was excited to fight after seeing all the DLC trailers, and when I finally got to him, it was not a letdown whatsoever. The scenery, the arena, and the design of the Dancing Lion itself made the fight feel very cinematic. Its abilities are what carries the fight in my opinion, as it can switch between lightning, frost, and wind. The lightning phase is the hardest to deal with, as there's just a bunch of lightning strikes he can generate around him, knocking you on your ass. His frost phase isn't too bad, but it can make it a bit difficult to see, and that's my main issue when it comes on to the Dancing Lion. The camera will fight you more than the boss itself. I swear, you could be fighting him normally, then the camera will just trip out on you, and what makes this even worse is the fact that the boss not only moves around a lot, but its attacks are very, how can I put it, unusual. Now, I'm not saying that those things makes the fight bad, but since the camera is kind of a mess at times, they low-key add on to the frustration. But overall, when the camera isn't tripping out, this fight is definitely one of the best in the entire game. Ramina, Saint of the Bud. I've mentioned in a previous video that Ramina is one of, if not the most underrated boss in the entire game. While she might not be my go-to favorite, she's definitely an amazing boss with an interesting design. Speaking of design, I've always been a fan of the whole half female, half arachnid thing going on in certain Souls titles. Her arena looks great as it takes place in a dilapidated church overgrown with the scarlet rot. Now let's talk about her moveset. She has a fair set of moves up her arsenal, but none of them are hard to counter or dodge. Now what can catch you off guard is the way her lower body works, as sometimes you will dodge a move from her, then she attacks you with her centipede part, then after dodging that she immediately attacks you with another centipede part. So be sure to always look out for that. Also, it's best to have a decent amount of stamina and recovery as she tends to move around a lot. But all in all, Ramina at the end of the day is an amazing boss that deserves more love. The man, the myth, the legend. He beat all the cases and he came home an innocent man. Well, he didn't come home because he's dead and we killed him, but hey, good for him, I guess. Mohg is an interesting fight because at first I didn't really like fighting him all that much because one, you have to sacrifice a tier slot so that his second phase transition doesn't eat out your entire health bar. 2, he has a crazy amount of health. 3, he moves around a lot, barely giving you any time to attack. 4, his attacks hit like a truck. And 5, the blood fire everywhere in the arena makes it hard to position yourself. Now, after fighting him multiple times, I've realized that it was just a skill issue. His health is a lot but nothing crazy. He does move around a lot in his second phase, but he definitely has some openings. It's just that you can't spam attacks, which is fair. His attacks does a lot of damage, which is to be expected by a late game boss. All of those things I understand, except for the fact that in order to make the fight less stressful, you need the blood tier, which is something I don't like. I don't know, having to find an item or equipment to avoid a bullshit attack in a boss fight, I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of that. The other thing I didn't really like about his boss fight is the fact that he just throws blood flame everywhere in the arena. And I understand he's the Lord of Blood, but man, this makes the fight annoying because you have to tiptoe and be careful of your positioning while you have this big ass man just flying around doing crazy attacks. I just don't see the point to it. But all that aside, I've learned to counter all those things, so his boss battle feels way better, and this is the reason why I put him at A tier. Consort Radahn. So Consort Radahn got patched and a lot of people were happy and some weren't for some reason, as the patch fixed some of his major issues. One of them was his hitbox with his cross slash attack, and the lighting for phase 2 is toned down a bit, so it doesn't feel like you're getting flashbanged when fighting him, but I guess some people just, like to get tortured, I don't know. Now if you've seen some of my previous videos, you might already know how I felt about Consort Radahn at the time. You see, my main issues with him was not because, oh, it's just Radahn. No, I actually really like Radahn as a character. The main issues I had with this boss was with the second phase. Again, some of his attacks were blinding, his downtime was non-existent, he would do a combo then immediately follow up with another combo, so he would have to squeeze some damage when he randomly decides to chill out. And mind you, he has a shit ton of health, so you're gonna be fighting him for a long time. His cross slash attack was probably the biggest issue, as it was undodgeable unless you positioned yourself to the left or if you had light equipment load. And what would happen with this attack is that it will catch you off guard, you get hit by it, then get stunned by one of his holy beams, and then immediately he would follow up with another combo killing you. But okay, that was pre-patch Radahn. What about currently? Well, surprisingly, he's actually fun now, and at first I didn't think that the patch was gonna change my mind on him, but holy shit, he actually feels like a fun and somewhat fair fight. Now mind you, I was using the best holy damage negation spell and the golden braid, but even when I was fighting the pre-nerf version of him with the same equipment and a higher level, I was still struggling so much because of his bullshit. But now I actually didn't have to rely on any bleed or other types of cheese builds just to kill him. I just went in with my big ass hammer and it only took me around 4 tries. Now one of those tries I was bullshitting, so technically 3, and all of those first 3 tries I was really close to defeating him, and when I died I didn't feel like it was, bullshit. I knew it was my fault. So yeah, I probably still need to find him with different builds, but as of right now with the build that I used, he was really fun, and I'm glad they patched him because before the patch he was one of my least favorite bosses in the entire game, but thankfully he's actually fun now. Rellana, still one of my favorites in the entire game. I was contemplating putting her in S tier, but I think A tier is fair because I really like her fight and I love her visuals, but there's just something holding her back, and no, it's not the lack of cutscene. I do wish she had one, but it's not that. I think it's because of the small amount of downtime she has after doing a combo. She just does not stop, and her elemental attacks, especially the magic ones, does so much damage. At least they place a resistant talisman in her region, but even with that, she still does a lot of damage. Now I found the best way to fight her is to use the deflecting hard tier, as you can counter most of her combos and then potentially stagger her with a heavy attack. In my opinion, it's the safest way to deal with her, especially because her arms have a separate life of their own. Overall, despite having a little downtime, she's still a great boss and is still one of my favorites. Malekith. Malekith is a decent boss, but his first phase holds him back, as it just doesn't feel engaging. His moveset is repetitive and there's not much excitement in dodging his attacks. It feels more like a chore to get through. However, once he enters his second phase, the fight gets a lot better. He's much more dynamic, flipping around the arena and making the fight feel more intense. His attacks are faster and more varied, and he opens himself up more for counters, which makes it more fun. That said, some of his attacks have hitbox issues, which can be frustrating, as if you get hit once, it's basically GG's. His double sweep attack, for example, sometimes hits even if it feels like you've dodged it perfectly. The ground slam has a similar issue with its aftershock catching you off guard at times. His spin and flurry attack is another tough one to avoid. Even though you're supposed to move to his side, it often feels like no matter how fast you go, you still get caught in it. Overall, while the second phase is strong, these issues can take away from the experience. Now, the reason why he still ranks pretty high is because despite these things, I've had a lot of fun fighting him, even compared to the previous bosses that I've mentioned. Morgott. Morgott is a fun boss overall, with a good mix of challenge and excitement. His moveset is varied and it keeps you on your toes throughout the whole fight. My favorite is when he summons the raining swords. There's a nice balance between his attacks where you have to time your dodges and look for openings to strike back. The fight has a steady rhythm and it's satisfying when you can predict his moves and counter them effectively. However, the only downside is that some of his faster paced attacks can be frustrating to dodge. They can come out quickly and it feels like you don't have enough time to react. This makes it easy to get caught off guard and take unnecessary hits, which can interrupt the flow of the fight. Despite this, Morgott still offers a good challenge and remains an enjoyable boss fight. Now let's move on to S tier. These bosses are the best of the best. And the first boss here is Midra, the Lord of Frenzied Flame. Going through the abyssal woods and stumbling upon this odd mansion was a creepy but amazing experience. When I saw this, I knew some shit was about to go down. And shit did go down, because here we meet an old man, and after killing him, he reveals himself to be the Lord of Frenzied Flame. I swear, the build up to this was amazing and the design of Midra himself was great. This is what I love about FromSoft enemy and boss designs. They're not something you would see in your typical fantasy or dark fantasy setting. It's simple but amazing. His fight is fun, as unlike most other bosses, he isn't too fast and his combos can be easily evaded. The Frenzied Flame buildup can be annoying to deal with, but that aside, fighting Midra is a great experience. Godfrey. Over time, Godfrey has worked his way up to S tier for me, and he's now my third favorite Elden Ring boss. His presentation is amazing, as in his first phase he presents himself as this noble warrior, and in his second he returns to his true primal nature. The fight itself is also fun due to how jumping is also a viable option now. Now, I do hate how he spams a lot of his AoE attacks in his first phase, but that's only for a small portion. His second phase, while awesome, is a bit less fun than the first due to him mostly relying on hand-to-hand combat and grabs, but it's still enjoyable nonetheless. All in all, he's a phenomenal boss, and that's why he's at third place. Malenia. I've said this many times before, but Malenia used to be my least favorite boss in Elden Ring, and I'ma just cut to the chase. It's because of Waterfall Dance. Now don't worry, I'm not gonna go on a rant about that, because ever since I've learned how to dodge it, she became my second favorite boss in the entire game. Her moveset is great and she has an amazing design. Again, less is more, and she can be tons of fun. Now if you think that Malenia is the worst boss in Elden Ring due to that shitty ass attack and the fact that she self-heals, I actually understand where you're coming from, and I'm not even going to try to convince you to change your mind, because everyone is entitled to their own opinions. So if you do believe she's dog shit, then hey, I can't argue with that, because I understand where you're coming from. But she's grown on me in the past 2 years, and I'm just a fan of cool blade wielding bosses, so that's why I put her at second place. Now, my all-time favorite boss in Elden Ring and my third favorite boss in the entire Soul series goes to none other than Mesmer the Impaler. What's crazy is that it took me fighting him like 2 to 3 times for me to come to this conclusion. He's an amazing and fair boss. At first he might seem super fast and his attacks may feel like they're made to punish roll spam, but you'll soon realize that it's just a game of reflexes. Pretty soon you're gonna be dodging all of his attacks like nothing, and even then, he still makes for an engaging fight. Unlike most other bosses on this list that has some big major con, Mesmer doesn't have any. He's probably the most fair and fun boss on this list. I mean, his attacks do a lot of damage, but if you're on Shadow Blessing level 15 and have the fire resistant talisman, you'll realize that it's not that crazy. His attacks are fast, but you'll quickly get used to them to the point where they feel like slow motion. I know I've been complaining about bosses having very little downtime, especially ones where the bosses are fast and has a lot of combos, but Mesmer actually gives the player enough time to attack him, while still not feeling like a pushover. These are all the reasons why Mesmer is at the #1 spot and why he's my favorite boss in the entirety of Elden Ring. So that was my ranking of all Elden Ring bosses, at least the Remembrance ones. Remember, this is just my opinion. Everyone's gonna have different views on certain bosses. Also, shout out to my Patreon members on the screen, Mac, Daniel Scotland, and Jabroni Jones. Thank you guys for the support, and thank you all for watching this video. I hope you have a good one. There are many deities in Elden Ring. Many of them happens to be powerful beings like Queen Marika the Eternal, Malenia Goddess of Rot, the Elden Beast, and Mikola. But there are even more powerful deities known as outer gods. The outer gods are mysterious powerful beings that gets mentioned in the lore, and most of them seem to not possess a physical form. Some characters that I've just mentioned are tied to certain outer gods. Now in this video I'm going to go over each outer god and rank them based on power and influence. Now I wanted to rank them solely off of strength, but since most of them are more known for their influence rather than physical strength, I'm just going to rank them based off that instead. I'm still going to talk about their actual powers though. But without wasting any more of your time, let's get right into the video. Before diving into the actual ranking, let's discuss some beings or entities that, while not confirmed as outer gods, are heavily speculated to be connected to one. Let's start with the Abyssal Serpent. Mesmer's remembrance reads, "A malevolent snake writhed within Mesmer, and so his mother plucked out his eye and put in place a seal of grace. Yet having done so, her fear compelled her to secret away her child with the realm of shadow, hidden away keeping company with the original sin and a hatred that would not be confined." Because of this, we know that it could just be a regular curse that Mesmer is inflicted with. I'm not sure, but due to the lack of info, I'm just gonna put it here for now. But if you were to ask me about its powers, well, in terms of influence, it's pretty much only affected one person, a powerful person at that, but other than Mesmer, there's no one else. And the powers of the serpent doesn't seem to be as insane compared to, the frenzied flame or the scarlet rot. So again, I'm just gonna leave it here. Speaking of unconfirmed outer gods, some people believe that there is an outer god of the moon, and me personally, I don't think so. Mostly because one, I don't think Ronnie would align herself with another outer god, as her whole thing was removing the influence of them, allowing people to guide themselves. However, I do think that the moon itself is somewhat living, but maybe not as an outer god. Now let's get to the actual ranking, and first we have the Deathbird outer god, or the Twin Bird. This is another outer god we know very little about. The Twin Bird kite shield states that the Twin Bird is an envoy, suggesting it serves as a messenger or representative of an outer god, which means there's an outer god of death out there. But that's the only hint to a Deathbird outer god. We don't know any of its feats, whether or not it's connected to Destined Death or Godwyn the Prince of Death. Nothing. The Deathbirds are able to inflict death blight with their scream, so maybe that's a hint to something. The only way we can know what its powers are like are through the actual Deathbirds and the Ghost Flame Dragons, and to be honest, I don't think they're a good representation of its full powers. In terms of influence, again, we barely see anyone uses its powers apart from certain creatures, but that may be because its powers are ancient. However, I'm gonna rank it low due to a lack of info and influence. Next up, we have the Formless Mother. The Formless Mother is the blood god in Elden Ring associated with cursed blood and a craving for wounds. She grants powers to those connected to a cursed blood, with Mohg being her most notable servant. Mohg was born an omen, cursed with tainted blood, which made him an ideal follower for her. While we don't know the full extent of the Formless Mother's strength, her powers are clearly tied to blood and its destructive potential. Some extents of her powers are most evident through Mohg's actions and abilities. The Blood Boon ritual, for instance, involves piercing the body of the Formless Mother with Mohgwyn's spear, allowing him to channel her blood for offensive attacks. The power manifests in explosive bursts and fiery blood that burns whatever it touches. Additionally, Mohg's use of portals may also be connected to the Formless Mother. These portals seem to serve two purposes, as a means of transport and as a source of blood attacks. The blood Mohg hurls during combat originates from the other side of these portals, potentially from the Formless Mother's domain. Though her powers appear significant, the Formless Mother's influence seems limited in scope. Her ultimate goal may not be to conquer or destroy, but rather to receive wounds, suggesting she thrives off pain and suffering, which kinda means she's a masochist? I don't know. Given her relatively small scale impact, her strength seems less imposing compared to the other deities in Elden Ring. The Fell God is a mysterious supposed outer god tied to the fire giants. It is believed to live within the last remaining fire giant, making it both a part of the giant and a separate entity. The one-eyed shield modeled after the Fell God suggests that this being is, well, one-eyed. No shit. Which lines up with what happens in the fire giant boss fight. During the second phase, after the giant sacrifices its legs, an eye opens up on its stomach, hinting at the presence of two beings sharing one body. The Fell God is known for its connection to fire and its role in empowering the giants, especially during their war against the Golden Order. While its influence wasn't as widespread as some of the other outer gods, it seemed like its very own physical strength made it a powerful force, as it's said that Queen Marika herself had to intervene and she slain the Fell God. However, slain may not be the right word to describe its fate, as the deity appears to still be alive, residing inside the body of the last fire giant. While the Fell God may not have had the same level of influence as some of the other outer deities, its strength and potential threat were significant enough to warrant Marika's personal attention. This shows that even if its influence was limited, its power made it a danger that couldn't be ignored. Despite its unclear full potential, the Fell God's role in the giant's history solidifies its place as a key figure among the outer gods. The Outer God of Rot is another mysterious and malevolent force in Elden Ring, embodying the devastating power of Scarlet Rot. Scarlet Rot is a deadly and highly contagious affliction that causes decay, transformation, and destruction wherever it takes hold. While the Outer God of Rot is less prominent than some of its counterparts, its legacy is deeply tied to key figures like Melania and Millicent, as well as afflicted regions it has left in its wake. This Outer God was defeated long ago by a swordsman who is implied to have been Melania's mentor. The idea that a mortal could take down an outer god might make this one seem weaker compared to others. However, it's worth noting that the Tarnished defeated the Elden Beast, a vessel of the greater will, suggesting that even deities can have weaker manifestations. It's possible that this version of the Outer God of Rot that was defeated was not the full entity but rather its vessel. However, the Scorpion Stinger Dagger states, "Dagger fashioned from a great scorpion tail, glistening with scarlet rot, this tool was used by heretics crafted from a relic of a sealed Outer God." This suggests that the Outer God itself was sealed, which means that this deity is not that physically strong. Side note, this also reveals that some Outer Gods have physical forms, just like how the Formless Mother can be pierced with Mogwin's spear. In terms of influence, the Outer God of Rot has left an undeniable mark on the world. It cursed Melania with Scarlet Rot, granting her incredible powers and transforming her into the Goddess of Rot. It also shaped entire regions with its presence. The Scarlet Rot is highly contagious, extremely deadly, and capable of terraforming landscapes while mutating those exposed to it. New life forms like the centipede creatures and butterflies were even born from the rot. While its powers are terrifying and widespread, the fact that it was sealed by a mortal swordsman diminishes its status amongst the other outer gods. Despite its deadly influence, this defeat lowers its rank compared to the other deities. But again, due to its influence and destructive capabilities, I'm still gonna place it here. The Frenzied Flame is one of the most dangerous and powerful outer gods in Elden Ring. You see, what makes the Frenzied Flame so dangerous is that it doesn't focus on creating order or balance. Instead, it seeks to destroy everything and reset the world into a state of nothingness. Its overwhelming ambition to erase all existence and its ability to control and corrupt those who come into contact with it makes the Frenzied Flame stand out as a force to be feared. One reason the Frenzied Flame is so powerful is because of its all-consuming nature. While other outer gods like the Greater Will focus on controlling or shaping the world, the Frenzied Flame aims to wipe everything away. Its ultimate goal is to burn the world to ashes, removing all life itself. This destructive intent puts it on a different level from its peers, as it doesn't just want to compete for dominance, it wants to erase the entire playing field. In the lands between, nothing escapes the influence of fire, and the Frenzied Flame takes this concept to the extreme. The Frenzied Flame's powers also lies in its ability to spread madness and chaos. Those who encounter its influence are driven insane, their minds overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of its purpose. This madness doesn't just affect individuals, it spreads like wildfire, consuming entire groups of people. The nomadic merchants are an example of this. Once a peaceful group, they were cursed by the Frenzied Flame, driving them into madness and turning them into vessels of its destructive will. The flame's abilities to infect and corrupt makes it extremely dangerous, as it doesn't rely on physical strength alone to conquer the world. Another aspect of the Frenzied Flame's power is its ability to grant immense strength to its followers. While the other outer gods like the Greater Will have structured systems and hierarchies, the Frenzied Flame offers raw, unchecked power. Those who embrace the Frenzied Flame gains abilities tied to chaos and fire, allowing them to unleash devastation on a massive scale. However, this power comes at a terrible cost. Embracing the Frenzied Flame often means losing one's humanity and becoming an agent of destruction. The Lord of Frenzied Flame ending demonstrates this, as the Tarnished who chooses this path becomes the ultimate vessel of the flame, bringing ruin to the entire world. Midra is another example of this as well. Finally, the Frenzied Flame's strength lies in its appeal to those who are desperate or broken. The Lands Between is a world full of suffering and loss, and the Frenzied Flame offers an escape from the pain. Its message of ending everything can feel like a release to those who have nothing left. This emotional pull makes it powerful, as it can recruit followers who have been rejected or cast aside by other systems like the Golden Order. In conclusion, the Frenzied Flame is one of the most powerful outer gods in Elden Ring because of its destructive purpose, ability to spread madness, and the raw power it grants its followers. Its ambition to reset the world by burning it all to nothingness sets it apart, making it a truly terrifying force. Now finally we have the Greater Will. Even though the Greater Will has abandoned the Lands Between, its power and influence remains unmatched among the outer gods. The absence of its direct intervention doesn't lessen its authority because the systems, followers, and powers it's left behind continues to shape the world. Unlike the other outer gods that rely on their active presence, the Greater Will has established a legacy so strong that it dominates the Lands Between even without being directly involved. The Golden Order is the clearest example of the Greater Will's lingering power, and the system tied to Elden Ring and the Erdtree defines the very fabric of the world. The laws of reality such as life, death, and the functions of souls were created under the Greater Will's guidance. Even after the shattering of the Elden Ring, the remnants of the Golden Order still dictates how the world works. Other outer gods like the Frenzied Flame or the Scarlet Rot influences small areas or individuals, but they haven't come close to replacing the Golden Order as the foundation of the Lands Between. The Greater Will's followers also ensures its powers remain. The Two Fingers, its most prominent messengers, continue to guide the Tarnished champions to restore the Elden Ring and uphold the Golden Order. Even without the Greater Will's direct presence, the Two Fingers acts as its voice, reminding the world of its authority. Figures like Queen Marika and her lineage were shaped by the Greater Will's teachings and powers. The demigods, though fractured and warring, owe their divine status and strength to the Greater Will's influence. No other outer god commands such a lasting, devoted network of followers. The physical symbols of the Greater Will's powers are another reason why it remains the most dominant outer god. The Erdtree is still a towering presence in the Lands Between, its golden glow serving as constant reminder of the Greater Will's legacy. Its roots spread throughout the land, touching every aspect of life and death. The blessings granted by the Erdtree, such as the golden light used in incantations, are clear examples of the Greater Will's powers persisting even in its absence. Other outer gods like the Frenzied Flame thrive on chaos or destruction, but their influence is far more limited. In conclusion, the Greater Will remains the most powerful outer god because its influence persists through the systems, followers, and symbols it created. Even in its absence, the world still operates under its laws, and no other outer god has achieved such a far-reaching and lasting legacy. The Greater Will's power doesn't depend on its direct interference, it's woven into the very structure of the Lands Between. At the time of this video, there are a total of 6 endings in Elden Ring, 4 of them being variations of the default one, while the other 2 are completely different from the rest. Today I'll be discussing which of these endings is the best, and by this I don't mean which is my favorite, but which is objectively the best for the world of Elden Ring. Is it the one where the whole world is under a dark moon, the one where absolute order is commenced, or the one where we burn everything to the ground? Okay, that one is obvious, but before I get into the video, I should mention that this video is more about the new ages of Elden Ring, not necessarily just the ending, as while I will be discussing and going over the endings, one of them, which is not part of the 6, is more of a what if scenario instead of an actual ending. Now when it comes on to discussions like this, I'm just gonna leave a little disclaimer. These are just my interpretations from the story and lore. There are no concrete evidence that state which of these endings are objectively the best, as most of them are skewed in mystery. So before you leave a comment like, oh my gosh, you're so dumb, obviously the Age of Consent ending is better than the one that you chose, please don't rank again, just remember what I said. And look, we're all mature people here. If you disagree with what I have to say, then that's fine. Just leave a comment explaining why. You don't have to be weird about it. Anyways, if you like content like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, and if you don't, then that's absolutely fine by me. Anyways, let's get right into the video. This ending is achieved by interacting with the three fingers, who are similar but a separate entity from the two fingers. While the two fingers are created by Metzger and serve under her and the greater will, the three fingers were created by the frenzied flame, or at least the outer god responsible for it. The three fingers are located under the capital, and if you open the door and go into their embrace, then you will be left with burn marks on your body, and your eyes will now take on the color of the frenzied flame itself. After doing this, Melina will approach you disappointed and threaten to kill you if you choose to become the Lord of Chaos. After defeating Radagon and Elden Beast, the statue head of Marika will crumble, the tarnish rises from the ground and turns around, only for their head to be replaced by an orb of frenzied flame. And outside, we see that not only is the Earth Tree burnt and completely destroyed, but also everything in the world, or at least the lands between. After this, we see Melina picking up Torrent's burnt whistle, which means that he died and now she swears destined death upon us. Before I get to why this ending is probably the worst one, I want to say one thing. I just really love the uniqueness of this ending. All of the other endings except for the Age of Stars are just variants of the Age of Fracture, while this shows that not only has your character become the Lord of Chaos, but they were able to destroy everything, and the person who was not only your companion but someone who swore an oath to you, aiding you in achieving your strength, is now going to hunt you down to kill you. It's a great ending, especially when it comes on to the scenery. However, despite it being cool, it is the worst one when it comes on to being beneficial for the world. Oftentimes when there is a poll or a discussion about which Elden Ring ending is the best, a few people like to point out the Frenzied Flame ending, which is weird because there's barely anything good about it. Now I know that when it comes on to the Souls games, a lot of stuff are left up to interpretation, and because of this, it's hard for me to tell someone that what they think is incorrect, especially when some of these people provide a decent argument. The argument that gets brought up a lot is the fact that the world is already corrupt and evil, and it deserves to be destroyed. Okay, I take that back. That's not decent. It's just nihilistic. The ending is literally just you burning the world to a crisp and your former ally turning against you. It's one of the only times FromSoft made an ending that is just straight up evil, so I don't think it's weird for me to place it here, as there's nothing good that comes from this. It's not like when the world is burned it will be rebuilt into a better one. No, there are no promises of a greater or at least a more optimistic future. Again, the world is literally just burning and that's it. People, if not dead already, will be consumed by frenzy and go mad. I don't think I even have to explain further on why this one ranks so low. The Blessing of Despair ending is achieved by progressing through the Dung Eater's questline. Before I get into the ending itself, first I think it's best to explain the Dung Eater, so we can get a better understanding of him. The Dung Eater always wanted to be an omen. No one really knows why and how this obsession started, but I like to believe that since omens are disdained by the world due to their appearance, I think that he might have felt some sort of sympathy and relatability to them, as most people speak of the Dung Eater as a person they disdain. I also think he was probably chastised due to his appearance, as he's ugly as hell. Again, this relatability is what probably drove him to his obsession with the omens, even wanting to become one, as he decorated his armor with horns just like how they were born with them. Fast forward some time later, Dung Eater is spreading a curse through the lands between, known as the Seedbed Curse. This curse will prevent dead souls from returning to the Earth Tree, forever cursing them and their children and their children's children. His words, not mine. Fast forward again, we then get the Mending Rune of the Fell Curse, and after fixing the fractured Marika, the rune is now overgrowing on the Elden Ring like a parasite, and this causes everything to, well, look like this. The sky now looks shit-stained brown and the world is now covered by a dark fog. While this ending may not be as bad as the Age of Chaos one, it is definitely not all that good either. First of all, everyone is now cursed to be omens, which doesn't seem to be all that bad, as the omens were once seen as divinity back in the Crucible era, but my main issue with this is that omens seem to suffer a lot, not only because of their persecutors, but with themselves as well. Their bodies have long horns protruding out of them, which seems to be able to grow back into them, causing harm. Look at Moog for example. One of his horns literally grew into his eye socket. The omens also seem to have an evil spirit haunting them in their nightmares, as part of the Omen Smirk mask reads, "This visage is carved in the image of the evil spirits that haunts the omens in their nightmares." There aren't any good upside to this ending, as everyone is now cursed to being an omen forever. Like, that is messed up. The The Age of Fracture ending is the basic ending of the game. Some would call it neutral as there isn't anything good or bad about it until you look into it deeply. After placing Marika's head on her body, we restore the Elden Ring as we know it. After this, we become the Elden Lord of the Fractured Age. Now the main reason why this ending ranks so low is because nothing really changes. Everything remains the same. Literally all the problems of the world is still there. The only difference now is that we're the Elden Lord, and sure, as Elden Lord you can bring about change to certain things like growing a following and rebuilding towns and cities, and fix certain things within the lands between. However, all of that is easier said than done, and certain things like the numerous amount of undead walking around can't be fixed that easily. Overall, the world is still on the verge of dying, and sure, you're the Elden Lord, but that's about it. To achieve the Age of the Duskborn ending, the Tarnished must complete Fia's quest line. When we first arrived at the Round Table Hold, we meet a lot of other characters, and one of them being Fia the Deathbed Companion. Deathbed Companions are people who sympathizes with the dead. They showed their sympathy by taking the life force from other warriors and passing it on to the dead by laying with them. They do this in hopes of giving birth to the quote-unquote dead that they laid with. Fia believes that Godwill will one day rise as the Prince of Death and save all the undead that are prosecuted. Later on, as we continue with our adventures, upon returning back to the Round Table Hold, we see that Fia has killed D. The reason why she killed D was because he had one half of the curse mark of death. Now it's not fully explained on how he got his hands on this. Some assume that he removed it from Godwin's corpse, but that hasn't been confirmed. But it does make sense for him to have it as he's the hunter of the dead. After this, we continue on our journey and make our way down to the deep root depths. After defeating Fia's champions, we find her laying beside the corpse of Godwin. Here she explains that she wanted to give Godwin another chance of life and let him be reborn as the Prince of Death. After that, she fell asleep and we can go inside of her dream, or both of her and Godwin's dream. It's kind of confusing. Inside the dream is Fortisax, who is now corrupted by Death Blight. After defeating the Lich Dragon, we appear outside of the dream back in the real world, only to see that Fia is now dead as she was killed by the twin brother of D, but beside the corpse of Godwin lies the Mending Rune of Death. With the Rune of Death, we can now attach it to the Elden Ring, and this will bring about the Age of the Duskborn. With this, death is now restored in the world and the undead will no longer be hunted. In my opinion, this is a good thing, as one of the main issues with the lands between it is the amount of undead that lived within it. With them finally being put to rest makes the world safer and less horrifying. However, that's about it. Apart from those who are dead, everything else remains the same and the world is still shit. While this may not be an actual ending, I wish it were, the idea of the Age of Compassion is really interesting, because in my opinion it's not all that bad. And no, shut up, I wasn't tickled by Mikilo or anything. It's just that he had really good intentions for the world. Unlike most other Empyreans who rose up to godhood, he's the only one actually interested in making the world a better, kinder place, filled with love and compassion instead of hate and greed, and all that extra stuff. I'm pretty sure Marika didn't even have that in mind when she ascended to godhood. Now there are two things wrong with this age. First and foremost, the sacrifices. Mikkel charmed Mohg so he could get access to the Land of Shadow, which then eventually got Mohg killed. He then used his body as a tool to resurrect Radahn, who is most likely being used as a puppet by Mikkel. Let's not forget the war in Caelid, which only started because Malenia was following orders to kill Radahn. This war led to the death of many people due to the Scarlet Bloom. Now in the grand scheme of things, Mikila's sacrifices doesn't seem to be all that bad, especially compared to Marika, who committed mass genocide, but it's still questionable, especially for someone who preaches about love and compassion. But that's not even the main reason why this Age of Compassion is bad, because if it was just that, then I would have been cool with it. But the fact that in his age, people would be placed under a spell to follow his rules is kind of weird, especially since this means no one truly has free will. Now, would this make the world a better place? Probably, but we know for sure that the spell can be broken. Sure, Mikula was the one that broke the spell, but what if someone who isn't affected by it do it? This would cause the people of the new age to riot after finding out that their free will was taken. But who knows, some of Mikula's followers, even after finding out what he did, they didn't seem to care that much, so maybe people would have just been fine with it. Overall, this age sounds really good in thought until you realize that Mikula is just running a supreme dictatorship. The Age of Order ending is all about fixing the imperfection of the Golden Order. You can get this by completing Gold Mask's quest, where at the end you'll get the Mending Rune of Perfect Order. The Mending Rune reads, a rune of transcendental ideology which will attempt to perfect the Golden Order. The current imperfection of the Golden Order or instability of ideology can be blamed upon the fickleness of the gods, no better than men. That is the fly in the ointment. This means that this age of order is all about relying more on the tarnished lord rather than the interference of any gods. This ending, while a bit more optimistic than the other ones, still makes me wonder if it's truly the best. Hear me out. The main reason why this Mending Rune exists is because it believes it will perfect the Golden Order as we know it by removing any influence from the other gods, as they are no better than men. But here's the thing, wouldn't that mean we as the tarnished lord of this new age could lead down to the same path as them? Who said that we were the right choice for this? I mean, I'm not saying that we aren't, but at the same time, we're just humans after all. You see, this is the thing, a lot of the endings in this game and the previous ones are left up to interpretation. There's a chance that this new age will crumble, but there's also a chance that it won't. As the way the narrator describes this, he talks about this in the past tense, so this probably means that the Age of Order did succeed and we made the world great. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong. But apart from that, I do think that this ending is at least better than all the previous ones I've mentioned. The Age of Stars ending is genuinely my favorite ending in the game. Not because I'm a Ronnie simp or anything, it's literally just greatly executed. It's also the second one that isn't a variation of the Elden Lord ending. In this one, instead of the Tarnished fixing the fractured Marika, Ronnie does it instead. Here she tells us that under her age, people will have full control of their own motivations, ideas, and self through fear, doubt, and loneliness. While the last part may sound a bit questionable, her plan is to again make people rely on themselves rather than an outside force. Now, does this automatically mean that the world is going to be a better place? Not really, but it is a great start and I actually like it since the world is going through a whole new reset, or at least completely removing the Golden Order influence. But here's the thing, her ending is okay, but I have to mention the sacrifices it took to get here. She literally conducted an assassination of her brother, killing him, leaving his body alive and his soul dead. This said brother was loved by many people and was probably a super great person. This eventually led Marika to snap and shattered the Elden Ring, which then caused many wars to come after this. Not only were there wars, but the state of the lands between has been quite shift after this, with countless undead walking around and other stuff like that. But it might seem weird to put this ending here as the best, even though it was built on a lot of sacrifices. But let's just get one thing out of the way. None of these endings or ages are good in a straightforward way. They all come with strings attached. For example, Michaela wants to make the world a kinder, better place, but he also wants to mind control people, removing their free will. The Age of the Duskborn restores death into the world, but this doesn't change the other issues in the lands between. We don't see if our characters were able to make the world a super better place. We can only hope. And the only two endings that I can see this happening is with the Age of Order and the Age of Stars. And the Age of Stars being my favorite again due to the fact that Ronnie is completely resetting the order and laws of the world so people can depend on themselves. Sure, this would probably mean that there would still be conflict, but I don't think they will be on the same scale of how everything is currently. So that was my pick for the best ending in Elden Ring. Again, this was based on my interpretation and not a concrete fact. This video was just for fun. However, if you disagree with what I have to say, then just leave a comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more content like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, only if you want to. That's it, have a good one. So I've been thinking about something recently, and that is, which one of the Elden Ring bosses is the strongest lore-wise? Now I've always wanted to make this video, but I was waiting for the DLC to drop, and since it's been a little over a week now, I wanted to give y'all a ranking of all the Elden Ring Remembrance bosses from weakest to strongest, including the DLC bosses. Coming in at last place, we have the Regal Ancestor Spirit. Ancestral spirits exist as a phenomenon beyond the purview of the Earth Tree. Life sprouts from death as it does from birth. Such is the way of the living. Now, to be completely honest, I don't know what the f I just read, but all I know is that it's an overgrown deer that shoots glowing nuts. So I don't think I need to know too much about the lore in order to tell that this guy isn't really super strong, especially compared to the other bosses. And to be fair, on my part, there's not really much lore about it anyways. At number 25, we have Godric the Grafted. Let's be honest, we all knew he would rank this low. I mean, this guy is stated to be the weakest amongst all demigods. He was so weak to the point where he had to hide against Radahn when he was doing his march. Which, to be fair, if I saw this behemoth of a man marching down where I live, I would be hiding too, not gonna lie. But also, for some like unfortunate reason, this man encountered Melania, who made him lick her boots. Now I'm not sure if they meant that in a way that, you know, Godric was getting his ass beat and then he had to beg her to stop. Or maybe, I don't know, Melania is probably like a dominatrix or something who literally made him lick her boots in order to shame him or something. Either way, it's quite embarrassing on his part. And because of this, Godric's last hope for strength is grafting, which to be fair made him a little bit stronger, but still somewhat of a pushover, because even knowing this, Morgoth sent out his projection, a weaker version of himself, to guard the castle from the Tarnished, because he knew that Godric was way too weak and he would be the first target. You know how disrespectful that is? I mean, the man literally sent out a weaker version of himself because he knew that at least the clone would put up more of a fight than Godric. And that is true because Godric is way easier than Morgoth. At number 24 we have the Putrescent Knight. There is not much lore going on for the Putrescent Knight. The only thing we know is that he guards Saint Trina, he was most likely human, who is now undead for some reason, and that's about it. There's not anything else to really go by other than his gameplay, which I don't really want to use because this video is just strictly based on lore. But from what it seems, he's just a regular undead knight. Now I do think that he might be stronger than Godric and the Regal Ancestor due to him being a late game boss, but apart from that I have nothing else to say. But I still feel confident putting him here because I doubt Saint Trina would just get a random ass knight to guard herself. So he must, you know, be able to put up a fight. At number 23 we have the Divine Beast Dancing Lion. The Divine Beast Dancing Lion is interesting as we saw a version of it go up against one of the demigods, which was Mesmer. And yeah, it got off screen, not just one but many of them. So it's safe to assume that the Divine Beast is definitely not on par with any of the demigods, other than Godric of course. He's barely a demigod. However, I find it interesting though as it has many powers such as lightning, wind, and frost, which means it can definitely put up a fight. Again, it's not a super powerful boss by any means, and the fact that it was the first boss of the DLC kinda proves that. Shadow Tree Avatar. The Shadow Tree Avatar is the embodiment of the Shadow Tree itself, so I was kinda disappointed on how easy it was. But then again, I don't think I want to fight, you know, 3 more phases of this thing. Now it was hard ranking the avatar because again there's no feats to go by or anything, but it's safe to assume that it might be stronger than the Dancing Lion and the previous bosses due to its size, powers, and the fact that it's the embodiment of the Shadow Tree itself. But I still feel like it's weaker compared to all the other bosses I've yet to mention. One of these bosses happens to be Estelle, Natural Born of the Void. Estelle is definitely stronger than the Sunflower due to his powers and moveset. I mean, it can teleport, summon a whole meteor shower, and has some other gravity based attacks. Based on these, I can confidently say that compared to most of the beast-like creatures, Estelle is a powerhouse due to his sheer size and powers. Next up at number 20 we have Midra, the Lord of Frenzied Flame. It is stated somewhere in the lore that Midra was once too weak to become the Lord of Chaos, and because of this he was forced to endure the blade that was stabbed through his head, as a way to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame. And finally, when we kill him, in his first phase he finally becomes the Lord of Chaos. Now with him being the Lord of Frenzied Flame, he can control and use the Frenzied Flame to attack his opponents, which does madness build up, and lore wise I think it's pretty self-explanatory that the more people are exposed to these flames, the crazier they get until they, you know, reach the point of madness. Now when it comes on to the sword he's using, it's basically an executioner sword that can unravel itself into many spikes, which is something unique, but I don't think that's enough to even take on the demigods. Don't get me wrong, I still think Midra could put up a fight, but it's obvious that he lacks weapon dexterity and combat skills because many of the demigods and legends can take him out with just, you know, their pure fighting skills alone. But at the same time, I don't think the Frenzied Flame power is anything to laugh at because I'm sure if it was a more powerful person who had this power, they could cause a lot of trouble. Rellana. Rellana was the younger sister of Rennala and a Carian princess. However, she left the Carian manor to fight alongside Mesmer in the Land of Shadow. She eventually became his sword, much like how Melania became Miquella's blade. Now I know some people are wondering why I put her here before Rennala, even though she's harder. Well, you see, again, gameplay tells a whole different story from the lore because even before Rellana left, it is said that Rennala was the head of the Carian family, which means she would be stronger than her sister Rellana. at the time. Now I'm not sure if Rilana, oh my fucking gosh, these names. No, I'm not sure if Rilana has gotten stronger after her departure since she's now using Mesmer's flame arts, but I still think that in terms of sorcery and magic, Renala is far superior. However, in terms of sword skills, I do think Rilana is better. But at the end of the day, I do think that again, while Rilana might have the upper hand in, melee combat, her sister's mastery of magic proves that she's the superior one. But don't get it twisted, as Rilana is still a really strong swordswoman given the fact that she literally became known as the Blade of Mesmer. Renala. Now I've pretty much explained why I think Renala is stronger than Rilana, but I need to bring up one of her feats to prove that she was definitely not somebody to be reckoned with. First of all, she fought Radagon's army to a stalemate. Now we all know why it became a stalemate. Radagon saw her and knew he had to hit that. But still, it's mad impressive that out of all the people that fell to the Golden Order, Renala and the Carrion family were the only ones that stood a chance. Now, another thing people are going to mention is the fact that she was super weak when we fought her. That is true. She was really weak, but at the same time, this was a broken, mentally depressed version of Renala that didn't even care about fighting us. I mean, the only enemies in the fight was her clones. Now, the other part of the fight, which is her second phase, cannot be truly used as a way to say she was super weak. I mean, first of all, that phase was literally, a clone created by Rani, so it's probably not even the full power of Renala. Overall, she's definitely not as weak as most people make her out to be, and I still think that she's stronger than her sister. Romina, Saint of the Bud. Romina was a victim of one of Mesmer's crusade and her church was burned down in the process. This angered Romina to the point where she communicated with the Scarlet Rod Outer God and she created a religion from it. And she then turned the rod into what it is now. So due to her having the power of an Outer God backing her, it is safe to assume that she is somewhat quite powerful. Now unfortunately we don't have any crazy battle feats from her, but the fact that she communicated and gained powers from the Scarlet Rock God should be good enough to place her at this spot. Now before I move on, I do want to mention that while she and Melania possess Scarlet Rod abilities, I think Melania was more of the vassal of the Scarlet Rod Outer God itself, while Romina was just given some powers by it, which is the reason why Melania's Scarlet Rod abilities far exceeds Romina's. Commander Gaius. Gaius was a friend of Mesmer and older brother figure to Radon, and it's stated that both him and Radon trained under the same Alabaster Lord who taught them gravity magic. However, despite him and Radon having the same teacher and him being friends with Mesmer, I don't think he was quite as powerful as them due to him being an albinaric. Remember, the first generation of albinaric people cannot walk as their legs can't move, so I think outside of mounted combat, Gaius would be at a disadvantage. But from what we see in his gameplay, it's shown that he can at least fly into the air for a couple seconds, which could help him, but the fact that he needs a mount is enough to let me put him here as he's still at a disadvantage. Fire Giant. The Fire Giant is an imposing force of nature due to its size and the fact that it can use flames of an outer god. Now I don't remember where, but I think it's stated somewhere that Radagon or Godfrey was able to defeat the Fire Giants in war, and that's how Radagon got his red hair, because he was cursed. So due to the Fire Giant losing to Radagon, it is safe to say that he's close to demigod level but still not as strong. Metyr. Now being the literal daughter of the Greater Will must mean you have to be super strong, right? Well, not necessarily. I don't think that Metyr is much of a fighter compared to the other bosses, as her sole purpose seemed to just be, surveillance for the Greater Will itself. Now Metyr is still capable of fighting as she has many cosmic-like attacks, but even then, I still don't think she's as powerful as something like the Elden Beast. But I think while she lacks physical prowess, her influence is the most terrifying part about her, as she plays a big role in the story for the lands between, the Two Fingers, and the Greater Will itself. Rykard. When Rykard was young, he gave himself to a serpent, granting himself immortality and strength. However, in my opinion, I do think that he's one of the weaker demigods due to mobility. Sure, you might need a special weapon in order to defeat him, but with that weapon, almost all of the other demigods would kill him pretty easily, except for Godric. But the only thing they would have to worry about is when his body regenerates, but that may take a super long time. Again, his mobility is the main issue, as he's not nearly as fast as most of the other bosses I've yet to mention. Overall, he's one of the weaker demigods. Fortisax. Now some people might be wondering why I placed Fortisax over Rykard, since it's stated that Fortisax was defeated by Godwyn, another demigod. Now we don't know how strong Godwyn was, but this was an impressive feat, so I do think that Godwyn must have been stronger than Rykard. Now the reason why I placed the Lich Dragon over Rykard is because of mobility. You see, while the Serpent Hunter can easily wound Wildguard, you can still hurt him using other means, and due to Fortisak's ability to fly and cause Death Blight, it's safe to assume he can outmaneuver the Serpent and strike it from above with its lightning. Now here at number 11 we have Morgoth the Omen King. Definitely one of the strongest demigods for sure. He's able to use holy incantations such as the Raining Swords and the Golden Hammer. He's also able to use his own cursed blood as a way to buff his weapon, enhancing the damage output. One of the feats that gets brought up a lot is the fact that he was able to subdue a younger Radahn. Now not Prime Radahn, but a really skinny and younger version of him, which is still impressive given that it wasn't even Morgoth fighting him but a projection of himself, which is Margit. Also, Morgoth being an omen and a demigod also gives him an edge in strength, as most omens are said to be crazy strong, and the fact that he's also the son of Godfrey makes this even better for him. He's also a very skilled swordsman and combatant. Overall, Morgoth is really strong, and that's why I placed him here. At the number 10 spot we have Mohg the Lord of Blood. Now this was a bit hard for me because when it comes on to pure physical skill and combat knowledge, Morgoth definitely has the upper hand, but Mohg has something that Morgoth doesn't, and that's the power of an outer god by his side. Mohg worships the Formless Mother who grants him special blood-like abilities, and the fact that he already has cursed blood makes this even better for him. And unlike Morgoth, Mohg embraces the fact that he's an omen, and he will use this to his advantage. Now when it comes on to feats, there aren't too many things to go by, but it's safe to assume that he's at least a bit stronger than Morgoth, and that's why I placed him at number 10. Star Scourge Radahn. Radahn is considered to be the mightiest of all demigods due to his sheer strength and powers. Speaking of powers, he's able to use gravity magic. With this, he's able to hold back the stars, manipulate his own weight so he doesn't crush his horse, able to fly into the sky and crash land like a meteor, and do other things with it as well. Another well-known feat he has is the fact that he fought Malenia to a stalemate, and even after getting blown up in the face by the Rot Bloom, he was still able to cling on to life wandering around the desert, and despite this, he was still so strong to the point where he needed a whole party of warriors to finally defeat him. Now some people say that he wouldn't have lost if he wasn't holding back the stars, and I'm not sure if him holding back the stars crippled his full potential, but since we don't have an answer, I'm just gonna leave him here at number 9. At number 8 we have Messmer the Impaler. Now I wanted to put Malenia at number 8 because it's clear that both her and Radahn are close in strength, but I chose to put Messmer here because while he does have a serpent god inside of him, I don't think it's as strong as the Scarlet Rot, since the Rot is more of a super deadly infection that literally eats away your mind, and it's probably super contagious, which means it's most likely way more deadlier than the Abyssal Serpent. But someone did mention that fire helps to keep the Scarlet Rot from spreading, and since Messmer has a more special kind of fire, this would help him to get rid of it easily. But since I'm not 100% sure this would work for Messmer, I'm still gonna place him here at number 8. But let's talk about some of his feats. Well, Messmer is known for his crusade in the Land of Shadow. He has a strong army which was able to wipe out most of the divine beasts and the Hornsent people. He's also the demigod child of Marika, meaning that his strength is on par with his siblings. He was also cursed with the Abyssal Serpent, which grants him additional powers as well. And let's not forget the special flame that he can manipulate. These flames are strong enough to burn the thorns of the Shadow Tree and the Erd Tree as well. That's how powerful Messmer's flames are. Now that's about it when it comes on to feats and strengths for Messmer. At number 7 we have Malenia. Malenia is an extremely skilled swordswoman and the vassal to the outer god of Rot. She was able to fight Radahn, mightiest of all demigods, to a standstill. She was able to nuke a whole region with Rot, destroying and mutating the creatures there. Finally, she's able to transform into the goddess of Rot when she's pushed to her limits, becoming even more powerful. While Messmer, Malenia, and Radahn are pretty much on par with each other, I would say that the goddess of Rot, Malenia, is the most powerful out of the three. Bale. From what we know of Bale, he fought Plasujasax and they both injured each other greatly, Plasujasax losing 2 of his head while Bale lost his leg. Now we don't know too much about Bale's other feats, but it's stated that he is the father of all drakes, meaning that he was probably a lower born ancient dragon, and that's why he looks so different from other ancient dragons such as Fortisak's, Lanciax, and Plasujasax. He doesn't even share that part of their names. Now when it comes on to the fight between him and Plasujasax, the fact that he was able to do as much damage to the Dragon Lord is still a great feat, despite him retreating and sustaining a lot of injury as well. This alone pushes Bale at the number 6 spot, since we know that Placidusax is extremely powerful. Speaking of Placidusax, we have him at the number 5 spot. We know he was the Elden Lord a long time ago, even before Godfrey. He's also the Dragon Lord, which means he rules over all the other ancient dragons. Now the only battle feat we know about him is the one with Bale. A lot of people mention Godfrey as well, but I don't think it was ever confirmed that they ever fought. But since he's the Dragon Lord, I'm going to put him at number 5. At number 4 we have Godfrey the First Elden Lord. What makes Godfrey's strength impressive is the fact that he was not only one of the strongest people in the Elden Ring universe, but he was just a regular human. He wasn't a god nor a demigod, no, he was just a normal human being. Now granted, he might have gained a buff in strength after becoming Marika's consort, but the fact that he was known as the Lord of the Battlefield is still impressive. He was also so strong that Radahn looked up to him when he was younger, and even after losing his grace and was sent away to the Badlands, he was still beating like a lot of people's ass and stuff, even though he was eventually killed. But I think it's because he was like most likely jumped by an army of soldiers or something. Either way, Godfrey is still extremely powerful, especially considering the fact that he's just a tarnished human. At number 3 we have Malekith. Malekith ranks above Godfrey due to the fact that he has the Rune of Death imbued within his sword, which literally makes him the Grim Reaper of the Elden Ring world. With the Black Blade, Malekith can kill anyone, even if they are immortal, and I think all it takes is just one sword swing for you to be one-tapped by him. He was also powerful enough to kill most of the Godskins and take out even the Glow-Eyed Queen herself, and that was also before he had the Rune of Death, which goes to show that he's not only relying on his Black Blade, but he's also just a really skilled fighter as well. It is stated that he was so strong that even the demigods didn't want smoke with him. Overall, he's just a really powerful, extremely strong guy. Promised Consort Radahn and Miquella. After playing through the DLC, these guys deserve to be ranked high. Look, I know that gameplay difficulty shouldn't be used here, but I think the devs wanted you to get the idea that Consort Radahn is supposed to be up there as one of the strongest beings in the Elden Ring world. First of all, this is a younger version of Radahn, and sure, it might not be his full prime since he's technically using someone else's body, but at the same time he's incredibly strong, especially when Miquella decides to give him a power up. And remember, at this point Miquella is also a god, and both of them together makes an insane duo. Now Radahn can detonate a holy nuke, fly at you at light speed, create copies of himself and fly into the air, then crash land like a falling star. And in this state, he's extremely fast as well. Since we don't have any lore feats from Consort Radahn, not regular Radahn but Consort Radahn, I had to use gameplay to justify his placement, but I don't think a lot of people are going to disagree with me that I placed him and Miquella at second place. Now, the strongest boss in the Elden Ring universe is definitely the Elden Beast, which is literally the vassal of the Greater Will itself, which is an outer god. It's also the embodiment of the Elden Ring, which represents order. What more do I have to say? Now you might be saying, well, if the Elden Beast is so strong, then why did the Tarnished defeat it? And to that I have to say, well, we're just built differently. You see, the Elden Beast is still powerful due to the fact that it helps influence a lot of the shit going on in the game, and to be honest, that's all I have, because I don't have any actual feats for this thing other than what it's able to create and do. But trust me, the Elden Beast is the strongest being in the Elden Ring lore, again due to it being a super powerful outer god's vassal. And that's it, all the Elden Ring bosses ranked from weakest to strongest. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a good one. So today I wanted to see which Elden Ring class is the best. But here's the thing, I'm not going to be ranking them based on how good they are as starting classes. No. We're ranking them based on how good they are on a full playthrough. So this means I have to use all the starting gear equipment from each class. This also means that I can't equip any other armor, spell, or weapon apart from the ones that I started with. Now I did allow myself to equip talismans and ashes of war, but that's about it. But before I get to the ranking, if you like Soulsborne content like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, and if you don't want to do that, then it's fine by me. Anyways, let's get to the ranking. Starting with the Bandit class, the reason why I rank it at last place is due to how terrible the weapon choice is. In terms of pure DPS, this has to be the worst class on the list, because the weapon you get is a f***ing kitchen knife. Now the only good thing about this is that it's fast, which means it can proc bleed pretty quickly, and it goes well with any multi-hit talismans. But even then it still sucks because the damage output is literally due to water. Like come on, I know drunk dads that can hit harder than this. But again, the weapon genuinely sucks. Now apart from the weapon itself, you do get a parrying shield, which is nice for those who can actually parry, but since my reaction time is slower than a damn sloth, it was basically worthless. I did get a couple parries in on Margit though, which I'm pretty proud of. However, there are a couple Ash of Wars that does well with this, and one of them is the Blood Blade. It's the only saving grace of this build, since it barely uses any FP. Again, if you choose Occult and level Arcane, you will be proccing bleed a lot. So am I saying that this is the worst class to begin with? No, but is it the worst class to beat the game with? Yes, at least in my opinion. Next up we have the Prisoner class. The Prisoner is a decent starting option, but in my opinion, if you want to do a full complete playthrough with this, let's just say it's not the best. First, let's talk about the armor. It's barely anything. Sure, it looks cool, but you will soon realize that it has terrible damage negation. Without the right defense talismans, you will get 3-shotted by a lot of the bosses, especially the ones in the late game. Another thing I really hate about this class is the main weapon, which is the S. Now me personally, I'm not really a big fan of thrusting swords in Elden Ring. First of all, their damage is not good, and sure, while they are fast and go well together with multi-hit talismans and the bleed affinity, again the damage is just not there. And the S-Stock can't even stagger smaller bosses like Malenia, which is crazy because even the weakest short sword is able to stagger her in one hit. But with the S-Stock, she just powers right through every attack. Now let's talk about the spell that you get. It's not really that good in my opinion, as it doesn't do a lot of damage. Overall, apart from Drip, the Prisoner is in my opinion one of the worst classes to beat the game with, and I only put it over the Bandit because at least the S-Dot does reasonable damage compared to the Great Knife. Now let's move on to the Prophet. Similar to the Prisoner, the robe provided barely any protection, which means again you're about to get 3-shotted by a lot of bosses. Now when I saw that the Prophet has not only a spear but heal and catch flame, I was excited. I thought that I would have a good time. Well, no, I didn't. First, let's talk about the spear. It's the only somewhat redeeming thing about this build, and even then it still suck ass. First of all, the range is terrible compared to most other spears, and the damage is disappointing. I realized this the most when I was fighting Malenia. Usually weapons like spears do good against her, even though I prefer slashing weapons as they cover a wide, amount of area, which is great because she likes to move around a lot. However, spears are good against her. But for this fight, man, it gave me a lot of issues. And it was mostly because of the range. Now the healing incantation, while not the best, still gets the job done. But the other somewhat redeeming thing about this build is catch flame. On its own, it doesn't do crazy amount of damage, but getting the Firecrack tier, the talisman that raises potency of incantations, and the Fire Scorpion charm makes it do decent damage. The only downside of it is the piss poor range. You literally have to be 2 inches away from any enemy in order to do, damage. But again, it's not a bad incantation. It's actually pretty decent, especially on regular runs where you can buff it using Golden Vow or Flame Grant Me Strength. So overall, the Prophet build is not super great when it comes down to finishing the game. You can do it, but you're gonna be in for a rough time. Next up we have the Wretch class. At first I thought this was going to be the worst class out of all the 10, but I was honestly surprised by how decent it was, at least in terms of damage output. Because if we're being honest, this class has the worst defense. I was even shocked that I got one-shotted by Godfrey's Eruption, even though I had a decent amount of health. You would think that I'm on New Game Plus, but no, I'm still on regular New Game. However, that aside, the Wretch is still pretty decent, even though it only has one weapon, and that's the club. And man, I did not know how good this thing was. I swear I was bashing enemies and bosses left and right. Now equipping this with talismans such as the Rotten Sword or a regular sword insignia, any Green Turtle talisman, and two-handed sword talisman goes so hard. Now when it comes on to Ash of War, I only use Golden Vow for that damage output and negation increase. The Crackblade is pretty good for it as well, as it does a lot of stance damage. However, I needed that damage negation, so that's why I went with Golden Vow. And speaking of damage negation, you're gonna need a lot. I used the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, the Pearl Drake Talisman, which is great for negating non-physical damages. You can also get some boiled crabs or prawns for that extra, damage reduction. Overall, the Wretch might not be the best starting class to beat the game with, as while you can do a decent amount of damage with it, the damage you receive is what sets it back a little, especially with the amount of high damaging enemies and bosses in the DLC. Next up we have the Confessor. The Confessor isn't a bad build to beat the game with. It has a decent weapon and urgent heal comes in clutch a lot of the times. With a weapon like the Broad Shield, it benefits best with multi-hit talismans. Bloodblade is also a decent Ash of War for this. However, if you want to go fully into Faith and Strength, then you can just add Golden Vow or Cragblade to it. There's not much that needs to be said. It's an okay class that has a decent weapon. The incantations is a bit lackluster, but again, Urgent Heal does come in clutch sometimes. Now we have the Hero, another somewhat surprising class. The Hero in the early game is very good, but it starts to fall off towards the late game, as the damage output, while decent, isn't super crazy. However, despite this, you will have an easier time trying to beat the game with this compared to the previous classes I've mentioned. First, let's start with the Battle Axe. The Axe class doesn't get as much love as the other weapons in Elden Ring, mostly due to its range. At least that's what I think. The range of the axe makes fighting nimble bosses a headache most of the times, and it's not like it does a crazy amount of damage. Not saying it doesn't do any decent damage, because it is a decent weapon. However, again, the damage does not make up for its range. But you can still try to maximize it as much as possible by either applying Golden Vow or Cragblade. But those are my personal preferences, as I like to get up close and personal with a lot of enemies and bosses. Now when it comes on to armor, it's not as bad as the Wretch, but it barely provides any damage negation. So again, if you're planning on doing a full playthrough with this build, you better stock up on some crabs and defense talismans. At 4th place we have the Vagabond. Now here's a class that has decent damage negation. I mean, I would hope so because the armor is somewhat heavy. Also, fun fact, Vagabond is the only starting class that makes you fat roll in the beginning. Now to be fair, the reason why you're fat rolling is because of the fact that you're carrying 2 melee weapons and one of them is somewhat heavy, but the armor also plays a part. The weapons that you get aren't too bad, even though I'm not the biggest fan. The longsword is a great weapon when it comes on to dealing multiple hits up close and personal. Now the damage of it isn't super great, but all you have to do is equip the multi-hit talisman and apply Golden Vow Ash of War, and you're pretty much good. I realized that this specific longsword wasn't performing well against certain bosses, but all I had to do was switch it out for the halberd. And sure, the regular halberd doesn't do any sexy amount of damage, but it is great for keeping your distance. Also, for the halberd, I found it best to apply blood tax onto it with the bleed affinity. All in all, Vagabond is a more than decent enough class for a full playthrough. Next up we have the Astrologer. Remember when I said that the Wretch was the most surprisingly decent build? Well, the Astrologer is another one. I hesitated on this build because in the back of my mind I thought it was going to be terrible, but man, I was shocked on how good it was, especially towards the late game and DLC. Usually most of these builds fall off towards the late game, but this was the opposite. In the early to mid game, you have to use your smithing stones on either the short sword or the staff. Now I'm a melee type of guy, so I put most of my upgrades toward the short sword, got the carrying grandeur, and set my affinity to magic so that way I can focus a lot of my stats into intelligence and mind. And sure, this build was kinda rough in the beginning, but towards the late game when I found all of the best talismans and upgrades, it was worth it. First of all, I was shocked by how much damage the glintstone pebblet was doing. Sure, it's nothing crazy, but the fact that you can spam these is amazing. Now some bosses like Melania for example can dodge these pretty easily, so you have to be a bit more strategic when using it. You also have Carrying Arc, which is just a slightly worse version of Glintstone Pebble, and that's because you can't spam it. Now the Ash of War I used was Carrying Grandeur, and I was surprised by the amount of damage this thing was doing. To be honest, this made me want to start a whole new playthrough using magic for real, as not gonna lie, it seems really fun. So yeah, that aside, despite the build taking a bit long to get good, the Astrologer is still one of the better classes to beat the game with. At 2nd place we have the Warrior class. Before I get started on the effectiveness, let's just take a moment to appreciate the sexy ass drip. Like come on now, this outfit looks cool as hell. Now that aside, if you watch some of my previous videos, you know that power standing curved swords are my favorite weapons, especially the bandit curved swords. I mean their moveset are great and they do a nice amount of damage, especially the jump attacks. Let's not lie to ourselves now, the jump attacks are what makes almost any curved sword build broken. I mean even if you don't have the claw mark talisman, they still do good damage. The only downside about the Warrior's curved swords and the Warrior class in general is that in the early to mid game you're only going to be using one of the swords until you reach the mountaintops and Far Missoula. During my playthrough, I just paired them with the regular sword Insignia for early game and Rotten Sword for late game. Also equipped the Thorny Crack tier for more damage on consecutive attacks, and I equipped the Claw Mark Talisman as well. It's just a great build to complete the game with. Simple as that. Now the number one best starting class to beat the game with is the Samurai class. Let's be honest, most of us expected the Samurai to be number one. It's probably the only class that a lot of people actually beat the game with without changing the main weapon. It's literally that good. I mean, the armor provides decent damage negation, you also get a cool bow, it also has good early game stat distribution, but again, the best thing about the samurai class is the uchi katana. The katana is just a great weapon. Sure, it gets outclassed by the nagakiba and some other ones, but it's still really good. It does a decent amount of damage in both the early and end game, it does bleed damage, and if you apply seppuku and bleed affinity onto it, you will be proccing bleed a lot. It's the weapon that I know a lot of people beat the game with on their first playthrough because it's just solid. You can also make the build more powerful by equipping the Lord of Blood Exaltation and many multi-hit talismans. In the late game, you can also use the Thorn and Crack tier for more damage on consecutive hits. Again, there's just not much that needs to be said here. Samurai class is just fantastic for finishing the game because it has a great weapon, good early game stat distribution, provides decent damage negation, and oh yeah, did I mention the weapon? It's literally what makes this class the best. So those were my rankings of the starting classes in Elden Ring. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more like this, then hit like and subscribe. And if you don't want to do that, then that's fine by me. Anyways, shout out to my Patreon members on the screen, especially the paid members Joanie Jones, who was my first ever paid member, and Daniel Scotland, who just joined. Appreciate y'all for showing support. And if you want to know more about the Patreon, then the link is in the description. Also, check out my Discord if you want a place to talk about Soulsborne content or any other type of stuff. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good one, and yeah, that's it. So while I was playing Elden Ring the other day, I was thinking to myself, out of all the bosses, which would be the scariest to encounter in real life? Like sure, almost all the bosses are some weird monstrosity, but obviously there's gotta be one that's the most horrifying. So today or tonight, I'm gonna be ranking all the Remembrance bosses based on who would be the scariest IRL. Mostly based off of appearance, even though I'm gonna use their powers as a way to justify their spots, but appearance is the main reason why I'm ranking. Anyways, I'm gonna be ranking them in 3 categories. The first one being not scary, second being moderately scary, or just creepy, and the third one being nightmare fuel. But before I get into the video, if you want to see more content like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, and if you don't, then that's fine by me. Anyways, let's start with the not scary tier, and the first person here is Miquella. Now sure, he isn't a standalone boss, but technically he's a part of a boss fight, so that's why I included him. Now in terms of powers, Miquella would definitely be on top of the list. I mean, bro can literally charm you into doing his bidding, and he could do this with a lot of people all at once. That's enough power to destroy the world. However, in terms of appearance, Miquella is literally just a damn twink. Like come on, there's absolutely nothing scary about the way he looks. And this is in his divine form. In his previous form, he was literally just a child. Like come on, that's not even scary at all. Next up we have Commander Gaius. Now if we're talking about Gaius, if he's riding that big ass boar, then yes, he would have been higher. But even then, it's literally just a boar. I promise you, if that thing stepped foot into the south, it's literally gonna get turned into a bacon and pork eat all he can, because that thing is getting cooked in no time. Also, Gaius himself is literally just an old crippled dude. I'm pretty sure no one in their right mind would get scared by him. Now to be fair, Gaius does know gravity magic because him and Radon were students of the Alabaster Lord that taught him that. But at the same time, we're not ranking them solely on powers. And even then, in the real world, the military, shit, even the police force would get rid of bro in no time. So he's not scary at all. Rellana. Rellana is a 7-foot tall magical baddie. Literally no one would fear her in terms of appearance. Now I know some of you might be saying that her being super tall and having the ability to wield flame and moon magic is somewhat terrifying, but let's be honest, that's literally nothing compared to what's to come on the list. Sure, I'm not gonna lie, I would be super intimidated by her if I got on her bad side, but I promise you, again, in terms of appearance, she's literally just your average WNBA player. And another thing, she would definitely have a lot of simps, so yeah, she's not scary. Rennala. Just like her sister, no one would find her scary. The only thing that would be horrifying about her again is the powers. She's incredibly intelligent and she can wield glintstone magic, but apart from that, she's not scary at all. And that's it for the not scary tier. Again, these were just regular humanish bosses that most of us would just look at and laugh at. Cause let's be honest, they're not scaring anybody. And now let's move on to the moderately scary tier. And the first person here is Godfrey the First Elden Lord. Alright, let's see. He's a battle-hardened warrior, but apart from that, he's not that scary, right? Wait a minute. How tall is Godfrey? Holy shit. 13 feet. Yeah, I take it back. Godfrey is huge. Like, not Rennala huge. I mean, he's literally a giant. At least in our world. Like, how did he and Marika even, you know... Okay, that aside, his height is the main reason why I placed him here. But let's not forget his physical prowess. He has superhuman strength, agility, and durability. He was also so strong and war hungry to the point where he needed Siraj in order to contain his bloodlust. He's actually insane. And sure, you might be saying that I shouldn't be ranking them based on power, but let's be honest, bro is the power. I mean, him being super big is the reason why he's this strong. So yeah, Godfrey, while not being nightmare fuel, is definitely a moderately scary and super intimidating person to encounter. I mean, imagine getting into a bar fight with this, like, come on. Next up we have Radahn, specifically the Promised Consort version. Everything I said about Godfrey applies to Radahn. He's a big hulking brute of a man that's a warrior and a war general, and I'm pretty sure he's a bit taller than Godfrey as well. And let's take a look at his powers. He can manipulate and use gravity magic so efficiently to the point where he can fly and turn himself into a damn meteor. Like, come on, that is extremely like intimidating. Cool, but intimidating. And again, let's not forget, bro is literally humongous. Just to give a good size comparison, it would take 2 of us to fit onto his sword. That's how tall he is. Next up we have Radagon of the Golden Order. Sure, his golden incantations are no joke, and since he's linked at the top of the Golden Order, he's literally almost a god. But the main reason why I'm placing him here is mostly because of his appearance. I mean, the stone-like body with cracks, the shadow arm, and a literal rune inside of him, all of that makes his appearance somewhat scary. Now if this was before the shattering, he would be in the not scary tier because at that point he didn't look like this. And let's be honest, bro probably looked really handsome, but now he's very creepy looking. Dancing Lion. The Divine Beast Dancing Lion on first appearance would make me shit my pants if I ever encountered it in real life, especially due to its weird movement and range of powers. But that said, once I found out that it's literally just 2 guys in a costume dancing around, it's no longer scary, just kinda goofy. But then again, the fact that they were possessed by an actual divine beast during this dancing ritual is kinda horrifying, and that's why I still place them here. Now here we have Melania, Blade of Mikola, and Goddess of Rot. Melania is standing at around 8 to 9 feet tall. She's missing a few limbs due to her being cursed with rot, but she makes up for them with her prosthetics. She's blind, but she seems to be able to still view her surroundings. She's an extremely skilled swordswoman who went up against the guy that can literally hold back the stars. Now in terms of powers, she uses the Scarlet Rot. This allows her to make anything in her path decay, and her powers can literally terraform a whole region. Not only that, but she can give herself to the rot and become the goddess of it. With this, she can fly, summon clones, and use the rot more proficiently. Now powers and abilities aside, just take a good look at her. Sure, her regular form might not be scary, a bit intimidating, but definitely nothing scary. However, her goddess form is definitely somewhat scary, especially when it comes onto her eyes, or lack thereof. But yeah, in real life, Melania would definitely be moderately scary. However, there's a guy that is definitely way more terrifying looking than her in terms of appearance. Morgoth the Omen King. Morgoth for sure is scarier than Melania. At least Melania looks like she could have been born with a disease or sickness that causes her limbs to rot off, but Morgoth straight up looks like a different creature. I mean, he literally has omen horns everywhere on his body, and for some reason he has a tail. And let's not forget, he's gigantic, and I'm pretty sure it's stated somewhere in the lore that omens were way stronger than the average men, and they could take on a whole mini army by themselves. So yeah, bro is not only scary looking, but he would definitely be a threat in terms of strength. Now we have Star Scourge Radahn, who is way bigger and more horrifying than Promised Consort. I mean, just take a good look at this guy. First of all, he looks like a straight up monster. Unlike his younger years where he just looked like an overgrown dude, now he looks like the Hulk on steroids and crack. His eyes looks different and his skin is now gray. It's not explained lore-wise on why it looks so different, but in my own headcanon, I think it's because of the amount of gravity magic he studied. Plus he can hold back the stars as well. So yeah, that aside, I don't think there's much that needs to be said. He's just scary as hell. Malekith the Black Blade. Let's not lie to ourselves. If we saw an overgrown dog man in real life, that would be horrifying. Imagine seeing this walk up to you in the alley at night. Another thing that would be somewhat creepy about Malekith is the fact that he talks. Not only that, but he's a skilled swordsman that was able to wipe out the Godskins and kill the Glow-Eyed Queen, who was a threat to Marika herself. So he's quite powerful. Now the only reason why he ranks here and not in the Nightmare Fuel tier is because again, he's just an overgrown wolf. He's intelligent, which is scary, but this also means he can be reasoned with. And he doesn't actively go out and look for trouble. I mean, the first time we saw him was in Caelid, and we temporarily became his plug. So yeah, that's how chill he is. Now we're moving on to the Nightmare Fuel tier. These are the bosses that are just straight up terrifying to look at and would make me and a lot of people shit themselves if we ever encountered them in real life. First, let's start with Godric the Grafted. Sure, in the lore, Godric is laughable. I mean, he called out Melania only to get humbled by her, and then he had to beg for his life. He then hid among the women folk to avoid Radahn when he was invading Limgrave. Bro is straight up a coward. But to be honest, I kind of understand where he's coming from because I would be scared of both of them too. However, in real life, Godric would be nightmare fuel. I mean, think of it like this. A man that grafted limbs onto his own body and those said limbs became usable when grafted. Like, come on, that is straight out of a horror movie. Also, he's probably the only boss that I've mentioned so far that is actually like really evil. So it's not like any of us would be safe. I think I placed him at the right place because I think Godric would be a terrifying person to encounter IRL. Next up, we have Mesmer the Impaler. I know some people watching this are wondering why I placed Mesmer this high, especially compared to Melania and Radahn. You see, appearance wise, Mesmer in my opinion is more nightmare fuel than both of those guys. Sure, Radahn is gigantic and Melania is rotted, but just the appearance of Mesmer alone just screams horror villain. I mean, sure, at first glance he's just a creepy looking guy with snakes, until he takes off his clothes and rip his eye out, only to realize that he has a literal serpent god inside of him, which means he can not only summon giant snakes out of nowhere, but he can also transform into one, which makes being on Mesmer's bad side even more terrifying. Speaking about being on his bad side, this man is capable of mass genocide. Sure, he also needed an army to pull this off, but he was able to take out multiple divine beasts on his own, which were the top tier warriors of the Horn Scent. His firepower is also an intimidation factor as well. So all in all, this guy is truly like nightmare fuel. I don't care what nobody say. Putrescent Knight. An undead decaying horseman is absolutely horrifying. Like, imagine seeing this guy while walking into the forest at night or something. He's also able to wield fire magic, which definitely bumps up his ranking a little. Mohg, the Lord of Blood. Mohg straight up looks like a demon. Sure, him and Morgoth are twins, but at least Morgoth can pass as a, extremely rare birth defected person, while Mohg on the other hand straight up looks like he's from the pits of hell itself. He's also extremely huge and can wield blood magic, so obviously he's gonna be super high on the list. Romina, Saint of the Bud. Romina was once a part of a church. Now we don't know if she was the priestess of the church or maybe she was just a member, but on an unfortunate day, her church fell victim to one of Mesmer's crusade, and because of this, she reached out to the outer god of Rot to grant her powers. And it actually did, but it also disfigured her in the meantime, making her look like Quelaag's distant cousin. Her powers includes, well, Rot is the same as Melania's, only not on her level. Now her appearance is the most horrifying thing about her. She's a giant flower looking lady with a scorpion underbody. Let's be honest, she would be straight up nightmare fuel in real life, and again she's also super poisonous, which adds on to the horror. Regal Ancestor Spirit. If a giant zombified deer that's the size of a building shooting magical essence at you isn't terrifying, then trust me, I don't know what is, because I guess you're just Mr. Tough Guy, I guess. I mean, look at this thing. I don't even think I have to explain myself anymore. Cause imagine you're walking into a forest, and I don't know why I keep bringing up a forest, but whatever. Just imagine seeing this thing. Shit, I'm running the opposite direction as fast as possible. I don't care. Shadow Tree Avatar. A giant beast like Sunflower. Yeah, this thing is frightening as shit. Of course I'm gonna rank it pretty high. Midra, the Lord of Chaos. Midra would be nightmare fuel. First of all, just going by appearance only, he literally has a ball of chaos flame as his head. His presence alone would make anyone's blood run cold. His abilities and behavior are factors why he ranks this high. He can wield Chaos Flame, which can not only destroy everything it touches but also causes anyone afflicted by it to go mad. His behavior is somewhat creepy as well, as his movement is very irregular. Despite his disturbing appearance, he moves gracefully, which definitely adds to his unnerving presence. Encountering or hearing about Midra in real life would cause a psychological impact on the world. Most people would be questioning where he's from and what the hell he even is. So yeah, that's why Midra is horrifying, and that's why I placed him at the 9th spot. Elden Beast. Elden Beast is terrifying due to its otherworldly nature, but in a weird way it is also beautiful, but again super terrifying. Similar to Midra, if it existed in the real world, most people would fear it. Now let's talk about Estelle, natural born of the void. Imagine facing an otherworldly creature with a gigantic insectoid body and a grotesque eerie face that seems to come straight out of a H.P. Lovecraft book. Estelle's presence is enough to make anyone's skin crawl. His abilities are also terrifying, with the power to summon meteors and create black holes. Encountering him in real life would be a deeply unsettling experience. The combination of its alien appearance and terrifying cosmic powers would invoke the fear of the unknown within a person. Fortisax. You might find it strange that I put Fortisax over Estelle, but just hear me out. Fortisax appearance wise is not as scary as Estelle, but its destructive power is what I fear the most. But before I go any further, I did say that power wasn't going to play a big role in the ranking, but for the dragons, I have to make an exception. You see, most dragons including Fortisax possesses way more destructive power compared to Estelle. While it seems that Estelle can only travel short distances, I don't think he would be able to destroy an entire city on his own, but Fortisax on the other ancient dragons could easily tear up any major city in the real world in no time. And let's not forget, he's literally a death dragon that can shoot fire and lightning. Like, come on now, that is crazy. Bale. I mean, it's a dragon that has the powers to destroy cities easily. Of course it's gonna be high. Plus, for some reason, Bale looks the most evil out of all the ancient dragons. Plasujasax. Plasujasax would invoke the same fear into people just like the previous two dragons would, except that Plasujasax is bigger and has multiple heads. And since he was literally the Dragon Lord, I have to place him higher than the other dragons due to his powers and abilities. Now we're here at the top 3, so these are the top 3 most scariest bosses in Elden Ring. And at third place we have Fire Giant. The Fire Giant's around 80 feet tall according to Google, and he has a humanoid build with red locks, and the creepiest thing about him is the giant face in the middle of his body. It might seem weird to place the Fire Giant over Plasujasax and the other dragons because they're way more destructive in power and their ability to fly makes them more deadly. However, the Fire Giant's appearance is way more freakish compared to them. I mean, at least the dragons could pass off as government experiments, but the Fire Giant just straight up looks like something from a nightmare. First of all, just look at the freakish looking face on his chest. Come on, that is straight up horrifying. The Fire Giant can also use a variety of flame-based powers granted him by his outer god, so yeah, I think third place is the right spot for him. Meteor, Mother of Fingers. I don't think this placement needs much explanation. I mean, just take one good look at her. Her appearance is just terrifying. It's literally a being made out of fingers that has cosmic powers as well. Whoever came up with this design needs to be checked into an asylum, because who the hell just comes up with something like this? Like, bro, you gotta be high or something. But I feel like the main reason why I placed her this high is because, like, why is she made out of so much fingers? Like, what? I think that's the most creepiest thing about her. If you have like some weird finger phobia, then she would be like your worst nightmare. But now you might be wondering, who is scarier and more terrifying than Meteor? Well, obviously Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. Rykard was just a regular man who was the son of Radagon and Queen Renala. To get stronger, Rykard decided to feed himself to the god-devouring serpent in hopes of being immortal. He did become immortal, but at the cost of him looking like whatever the fuck this is. Imagine facing a monstrous figure fused with a giant serpent, blending human and snake features. Rykard's snake-like body and terrifying face are straight out of a nightmare. Not only that, but he has fire-based powers, and his sword literally has countless remains fused onto it. His appearance and powers aren't the only thing scary about him, as his voice sounds sick and twisted. I've fought many bosses throughout the whole Souls games, and none of them were as scary and horrifying as Rykard in appearance. Rykard's overall hellish and grotesque look makes him, in my opinion, the most terrifying looking boss in Elden Ring, and if I ever saw him in real life, I would definitely shit myself. So that was it for which Elden Ring boss would be the scariest in real life. Remember, I was just mostly ranking them based on appearance and only using their powers as a way to justify their placement sometimes. And another thing, this video was just for fun, please don't take it seriously. Obviously what I consider scary is going to be different from another person. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more like this, then be sure to hit like and subscribe. If you don't, then that's fine by me. Before I go, I want to shout out my paid Patreon members, David Scotland and Jaboni Jones. Thank you for the support, and thanks to those who are watching this video as well. Anyways, I hope you have a good one.